Breaking down another big-time defensive back for Florida State's 2024 class. This is Charles Lester III. He's been a 5-star, upper 4-star throughout the process here. Florida State lands another big-time member of the secondary. And breaking it down for us is Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst here at Warchant.com and Warchant TV. Please do us a favor, hit the like button under the video because it's eval time. Dominic will break it down based upon the film, and then we'll also get to a scouting scale as to how ready Charles Lester is for prime time at Florida State. So, Dominic, when you take a look at Charles Lester, what is it that stands out to you about this prospect for Florida State?
So anytime especially when you pull up DB's film, I hate seeing pass breakups early in the film. If I'm watching a highlight film, I want to see ball in the air and ball in your hands. I don't want to see it on the ground. I don't want to see you celebrating the pass breakup. And that was the first thing that jumped out on the page when I saw him was the ball was in his hands, from the jump. The other thing that I love seeing is him. There's a lot of wide receiver, on this film. And that tells me a lot as a defensive back coach. That gives me a lot of information. One, in order to play offense, you got to know offense. And so in order to be good at defense, you got to have an understanding of offense. If we can go back on this, Ben, the thing that I don't get to see a lot because there's so much offense is his technique here. Like you see this technique, there's really nothing there in terms of technique. He's standing straight up at the snap. This is just an athlete being an athlete. And you see this a lot with DB film, so I'm not being critical of him specifically. It's very tough. I was this way as a defensive back. If you watch my defensive back film, I had 21 interceptions, but there was 0 times that I had good technique on any of those interceptions. I was just an athlete. Defensive back coaches in high school, they don't do as good of a job as college coaches do. So you don't see a lot of high level technique because you're going against inferior athletes. And so you see that a lot when you pull up defensive back film. And I see the little bit of that with him. I don't see a lot of his technique because a lot of times he doesn't need to have good technique. And then I also don't see him, we don't get to see a lot of his highlights because most of his highlights are on offense because he's such a good corner. They don't throw his way and he doesn't have to play with great technique.
So let me ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're putting the pieces together really quickly, if you see that he's an offensive player, which tells you he's got football.
Run that one back again, Ben. Go ahead. Sorry.
So if you see an offensive player, a defensive player could play offense, which tells you he's got IQ points, would that give you hope for technique? Because that means he's smart with the game.
Yeah, and the other thing that it tells me is like he's an athlete, so he has the ability to learn. If he's on offense, that means obviously he's having to learn a bigger chunk of the game than a guy who just stands out on an island and plays corner, and he's just playing press man corner for 60 snaps or 80 snaps, on a game. If he's got to go over offense, it tells me that he's at least having to think the game the whole time. And so that's always a great sign. It tells me about their athleticism. Here he is taking a wildcat snap. Again, this is great. These are great signs as an evaluator and as a recruiter, because it tells me if the guy's taking a wildcat snap, he's probably the best athlete on your team. There's a reason we need to score, and I don't want the ball touching anyone else's hands except for the guy that's the most dependable on our team. So you love seeing that. And so, yeah, there's some snaps where a guy is playing defensive back and also wide out. When I see that right away, I'm thinking, okay, this is a guy who at least is attempting to learn the game on a little bit of a higher scale than maybe a guy who just plays DB.
I know it was way back in the film, Ben, probably about 2 or 3 director Ben behind the scenes, 2 or 3 minutes, but you wanted to circle back to looks like a route he undercut when he was playing in what would that be? Some sort of deep safety or deep zone, I should say, a corner. Why did that play stand out to you?
Well, there's a lot of these plays where, again, he's ending with the ball in his hands, which we love, but he's also playing with a 10 yards off, sort of bail technique, and he's just baiting the quarterback to make throws, and then the quarterback does, and he goes and picks it off. Here it is. He's 10 yards off here. There's no sort of technique there, and then he goes and he just makes a play on the ball. That's an athlete making a play, and we love to see it, but that doesn't fly at the college level.
Yep.
I can't watch that and then project that guy's going to be a good corner. When I see that, there's nothing there redeemable from a college standpoint. A college corner could never get away with doing what he did on that play. So I have to sort of discard that rep. And what I can take from it is an athlete doing athletic things. I can see how athletic he is. I can see that he can catch. I could see that he has the intuition to go break on that was a seam route, and he was responsible for the deep third. So I can see, okay, maybe he has good anticipation on knowing what the offense is going to do there. So then maybe that's why he's baiting him and playing off. But it also it gives me a little bit of just caution in terms of he may be a ways away from learning the techniques that I have to teach him in order for him to be able to play on Saturdays.
Interesting. So let's take it to the scouting part of the operation here, where we take a look. This is Dominic Robinson's scale, independent, as he likes to say, of the stars and the recruiting services, but it's about readiness for the college experience, readiness to play college football. Dominic, I'm curious, as an offensive player, do you think Charles Lester's more ready-made for Saturdays right now than a defensive player?
No, I do love seeing him with the ball in his hand. So I definitely sort of earmarked that we need to look out for this guy as a returner. I do think he's an instant returner. So I put him in the 2.75 to 3 range, where he's probably not going to redshirt, but he's definitely, has some needs. He's going to need some experience and teaching from a corner standpoint, from a corner technique standpoint. But I think he's an instant contributor as a returner. I'm almost positive of that, based on how often you see him. He's got some real suddenness. He's got tremendous quicks, and he's got good ball skills. So I do see him as an instant contributor, and then probably work his way, because of his role as a returner, probably work his way into getting reps and with the defense and nickel and dime situations, and then maybe even get some more play down the road.
The latest in our series of breaking down and evaluating Florida State's 2024 signees. He's Dominic Robinson, lead football analyst at Warchant TV, warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang. There's a whole series of these. Check them out, in addition to all of the content stemming from the early signing period in 2023. Hit the like button underneath the video and check out more of our content here on Warchant TV.